domestic terrorists that stormed the Capitol. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Cory Booker. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning. Good morning.
So great to have you. You were in the room, obviously, yesterday, listening to the arguments of the House impeachment managers. Can you just bring us inside the room? I mean, what was the reaction from senators on both sides of the aisle?
Well, I think the energy on both sides, on the whole, was very sober and very moved by what was just deeply compelling presentation. And there were dots that were connected that many of us were just not aware of. And then the timeline was just so, for many of us, damning. I mean, the fact that you had a president who tweeted 16 times from midnight the day before to his rally, stop the steal, stop the fraud, and then was suddenly silent for hours as the attack on the Capitol was going on. But worse than that, the tweets he did do were inciting that murderous mob to go after his own vice president. I mean, I think when they put up the fact that the rioters were reading Donald Trump's tweets, calling out the failures he saw, the lack of courage he saw in Mike Pence, it was stunning that Mike Pence was hiding with his family, as in you then see the mob starting to scream and chant, hang Mike Pence. This is a president that so clearly betrayed not just his oath of office, but the role he swore to play, which was commander-in-chief to protect American citizens. No, instead, a man that knows how to tell people to stop didn't tell them to stop, but instead directed that rage, that violence towards his own vice president.
I mean, and yet with all of those, as you point out, impactful moments, we have heard some reporting that some Republican senators seemed distracted. Senator Josh Hawley, who you'll recall showed some solidarity with the insurrectionists, that he has his feet up, he wasn't looking, he was sort of focused on his own reading material. Are you seeing any of that?
Well, again, I see a lot of my Republican colleagues respectfully listening, some of them visibly moved. But I can't sit in judgment of my colleagues at all. I think this is one of those moral moments in American history where what we say and do here makes a powerful difference, not just to this moment in time, but if we ignore, if we excuse, if we in any way condone what happened, we will invite that horror back on our own country. And so these are folks that are going to have to answer the call of their conscience, the call of history, the call of their creator. Because there's no one that can say a president who whipped up a crowd to believe this big lie for weeks, if not months beforehand, who against his own party, who against his own party officials, secretaries of states, governors, against judges he himself appointed, who all said it was a lie, he whipped up people to believe that they had no other choice but to fight like hell, to come to the Capitol. It will be wild, he said, and then direct them specifically against members of his own party, including the Vice President of the United States. This is so clearly not a left or right moment, but a moral moment. And what we say and do here will define the character of our country, not to mention who we are as individuals.
What you hear some Republicans say is, yeah, this was bad, but everything else that has happened is really bad. The stuff that happened in Portland, for instance, over the summer is so bad. The stuff that, Republicans have had to face at the hands of angry Democrats. Here's what Roy Blunt told Armando Raju yesterday. Well, you have a summer where people all over the country are doing similar kinds of things. I don't know what the other side will show from Seattle and Portland and other places, but you're going to see similar kinds of tragedies there as well. Do you think that's an apt comparison, the violence and the vandalism in Portland with the insurrection on the U.S. Capitol?
Well, we should all be condemning violence and vandalism. But this is an impeachment of the President of the United States. And I think there's no way to conclude that but for the President of the United States' actions, telling people that this was a fraud despite all the evidence to the contrary, leaving his supporters with no other choice but to fight for their country, inviting them to the Capitol, whipping them up in a speech, directing them towards the Capitol, remaining silent during the attack as people all around him implored him begged him to do something to stop the violence. As his former chief of staff, former governor of my state, former people that served in high positions were begging him publicly to stop it. He did nothing. In fact, he poured more gasoline on it. And so this is what's at issue right now, not the fact that there has been violence in our country, not the fact that there's been other terrorist attacks in our nation's history. This is the President of the United States responsible? And I think it is clear that but for the actions of this president, we would not have had a murderous mob overtake the Capitol, hunt the Vice President, hunt the Speaker of the House. They literally were saying they were taking direction from him. They were reading his tweet publicly out to other rioters as they chanted, "Hang Mike Pence."
And Senator, on those points that you just made about what the president was doing while all of this was happening, and that there was silence while people were calling him begging for help, we had famed Republican election lawyer on, Ben Ginsburg, who said that he felt that there still needed to be a silver bullet from the House managers. And those people that you just described is who he would call as a witness. Who was around the president during those 3 hours where he checked out during this insurrection to hear what he was doing, whether he was gleeful watching all of this, why he wasn't taking any action. Do you think that hearing...
Probably in my car.